Hi, everyone. It's me here, Robert. Sorry I couldn't be with you. I'd love to be with you now, but I have to deliver this online because Avery tested positive for COVID. He's doing fine, but we're just being very cautious, of course, for everyone's safety. So what do you do when you're having guests over to your house? In our house, we used to do lots of work to try to make our house presentable. But this became a bit of a problem because it meant we were reluctant to exercise hospitality. And we gradually got better at being slack. It just means that if we invite you over, be prepared for our house to be a huge mess. Of course, this all depends on who it is. If it's just Darren coming over, there's no problem. But if we were going to have, say, Jacinda Ardern over, we'd probably try to clean up a bit. Okay, but what would you do if God himself, the creator of the universe, were to say, hey, that he's coming over and he wants to stay for a while? You'd absolutely freak out, right? Well, this is what happened to the Israelites in the second half of the book of Exodus. And today I'm going to talk about what God did to make this bearable for the Israelites and how that relates to us today. Well, one of the things that God did is that he gave very clear instructions. If you have a very important guest coming, it will be very helpful for them to give you detailed instructions on what they expect. In God's case, he gives very detailed instructions for the construction of the tabernacle. And essentially, the tabernacle was a tent or a portable temple for God to dwell in while accompanying the Israelites on their journey through the desert. So, an example of these instructions is Exodus chapter 25, verses 10 to 16, where God says, have them make an ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. Overlay it with pure gold, both inside and out, and make a gold molding around it. Cast 4 gold rings for it and fasten them to its 4 feet, with 2 rings on one side and 2 rings on the other. Then make poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. Insert the poles into the rings on the sides of the ark to carry it. The poles are to remain in the rings of this ark. They are not to be removed. Then put in the ark the tablets of the covenant law, which I will give you. Now, there's chapter after chapter of these instructions. We aren't going to go through them all now. But these instructions would have been reassuring for the Israelites because it lets them know what God expects and how to properly accommodate him. Now, you may well ask, what is the point of having all the stuff in the Bible, though, handed down to us over so many years? Can you imagine the scribes spending years copying all these instructions by hand? Can you imagine them thinking, hey, just skip to the good stuff already? Now, this is a kind of question about reading God's mind that we can't necessarily answer. However, I do think that reading through the details of these instructions gives us a sense of the majesty of God. Like being in a beautiful cathedral helps many people sense the glory of God. Also, with these details and some modern technology, we can create online videos that show what the tabernacle would have looked like in really interesting and impressive ways. I can't show you the whole video now, but I'll give you a link, and here's a screenshot. All right, so that's the tabernacle right there in the middle. Okay. What's the next thing? God doesn't just provide instructions, he also provides the means to follow his instructions. I mean, when you read the instructions, you may well ask, where did the Israelites get all the materials for this? They're camping in the desert. Where did they get the gold and the silver and the cloth? Now, I don't have a full answer to that, but part of the answer is in Exodus chapter 12, verses 35 and 36, earlier in the book, which says the Israelites did as Moses instructed and asked the Egyptians for articles of silver and gold and for clothing. The Lord had made the Egyptians favorably disposed towards the people, and they gave them what they asked for, so they plundered the Egyptians. By the way, one thing I want to point out is that in ancient times, clothing was much more valuable than it is now. Everything had to be hand-spun and hand-woven, and women in particular spent an enormous amount of time and energy making textiles at home. When we read about cloaks and other articles of clothing in the Bible, we have to recognize that these were extremely valuable items, and it made sense to list them alongside silver and gold. Anyway, so God miraculously caused the Egyptians to gift a lot of valuable stuff to the Israelites, and we know he also provided miraculously for them with food, such as manna and quail. And he may well have miraculously provided for them in other ways. So God really provided the means for the Israelites to follow the instructions he's given. All right. God not only gave the materials, but he also gave the skills that were needed to do all the work. For example, Exodus 31 chapter 1, verse 1 to 6 says, the Lord said to Moses, I have chosen Bezalel, son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, with understanding, knowledge, and with all kinds of skills, to make artistic designs for work in gold, silver, and bronze, to cut and set stones, to work in wood, and to engage in all kinds of crafts. Moreover, I have appointed Aholiab, son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, to help him, and I have given ability to all the skilled workers to make everything I have commanded you. And it's not just the ability to do the work, but they were also given the ability to teach others. It says later in Exodus, Moses said to the Israelites, the Lord has chosen Bezalel, son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and he has given both him and Aholiab, son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, the ability to teach others. So these essential skills were something else that God provided. God provided one more really important thing that we mustn't overlook. When God comes to stay, we're not worthy of his presence. No matter how nice our place is, no matter how much work we do to clean it up, our sin is still disgusting. So God appoints Aaron in Exodus and his sons as priests and creates a way for them to atone for their sins and for the sins of the Israelites by making sacrifices. So here's Exodus chapter 29, verses 35 to 37. Do for Aaron and his sons everything I have commanded you, taking 7 days to ordain them. Sacrifice a bull each day as a sin offering to make atonement. Purify the altar by making atonement for it and anoint it to consecrate it. For 7 days, make atonement for the altar and consecrate it. Then the altar will be most holy, and whatever touches it will be holy. So altogether, God ensures that the Israelites have everything they need to welcome him. Now that's got to be a relief. There's one more ingredient here. God invites the Israelites to respond. God provided the instructions, the materials, the skills, and the atonement, but the Israelites still had their part to play. And there's a big emphasis in this text on the fact that the Israelites should contribute as they felt willing to give. For example, in Exodus 25, verse 2, it says that God says, tell the Israelites to bring me an offering. You are to receive the offering from me, from everyone whose heart prompts them to give. Now, in fact, the Israelites did respond very generously. Exodus says that the people were restrained from bringing more because what they already had was more than enough to do all the work after they'd done their giving. Now, this whole thing really shows the graciousness of God. And I think it's like when Janet makes card kits for kids. She spends hours assembling all the materials and instructions, and then the kids put it together in 10 minutes. And then all the adults say, "Ooh, look what great cards you made." I mean, that's great. But it drives home the point that God didn't need the Israelites to build him a tabernacle, just like Janet doesn't need kids to make cards. But God graciously allowed the Israelites to contribute to the relationship using the resources he himself had given them. So he let them express their love for him in a very concrete way. And this is really important, since before and after the construction of the tabernacle, the Israelites had demonstrated all sorts of attitude problems. And it's important that the Israelites weren't all bad. Okay, so that's interesting, but it's all kind of a long time ago, and we're not camping in the desert with God, so what does it mean for us? Well, God still wants to live with us, but in a different way. And the principles that I just identified are still at work in new ways. God was present in the tabernacle, and then later in the temple in Jerusalem, with a break when the Jews were exiled in Babylon. But then God came into the world in a whole new way in the person of Jesus. And very soon after that, the temple was destroyed. And that wasn't a coincidence. Now, Jesus departed the world to be with the Father, but he sent the Holy Spirit to dwell with us. And this Holy Spirit, the Holy Spirit is an echo of the tabernacle that persists today. You can see this, for example, in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19, where Paul writes, "Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God?" Wow, does that sound great to you? It is great, but we should also be kind of concerned, just as the Israelites were. God coming to dwell with us, and the Holy Spirit, or in any way, is a crisis, and it plays out in each of our lives, and we have to take it very seriously. But fortunately, just as with the tabernacle, God gives us what we need to handle him coming to dwell with us. Okay, so here's this picture, and now we can fill it in. Talking about our situation. The first thing I want to fill in actually is atonement. So how does God deal with the sin in our lives so that he can draw near to us? He does it by providing the ultimate high priest and the ultimate sacrifice, Jesus. I hope you saw that coming. Jesus, his own divine son. He provided this sacrifice before we did anything to deserve it, just like he chose the Israelites and rescued them from Egypt before the tabernacle sacrifices existed. So the next thing will be instructions. So Jesus and the apostles tell us a lot in words and by example about how to live with the Holy Spirit in us. For example, Galatians 5, verses 22 to 23 says, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And against such things, there is no law. And of course, there's so much teaching in the New Testament, including in the Gospels, and both the Gospels and the letters. So, and we should be reading the Bible and studying these instructions to prepare, so that when God dwells in us, we know what's going on and we know what to do. All right. Now, we don't need to build a physical temple or a tent or anything else for God to be present in us, and that's something that's changed. But just like the Israelites, we are called to use the resources God has given us to build up the church community and make God's kingdom more present. And Jesus, for example, tells us to spend our wealth to store up treasure in heaven, for there our hearts will be also. Now, we have many opportunities to give, not just to the church, but to the people and organizations around us who are in need. And not just money, but our time and our emotional energy and so on. And we should be joyfully giving what God has given to us, just as the Israelites gave the tabernacle what God had given to them. God gives us skills and other spiritual gifts to build up our church community. And again, this makes God more present among us. For example, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7 says, now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. Right, so God himself in the Holy Spirit is given to us as a gift, and he gives us gifts as well, these spiritual gifts. We need to identify these gifts that have been given to us and use them for the good of everyone as God intends. And of course, there's one more component here, which is our response. So just as with the tabernacle, God invites us to participate in his coming to us. And just like he did to the Israelites, he's given us the option of rejecting him or just ignoring him and not contributing and not being part of that relationship. So the question then for each of us is, and for all of us is, are you eager for the Holy Spirit to come and dwell with you and be part of our community? Do you show that decision in your actions like the Israelites did? They didn't just acknowledge God's presence, but they gave and they worked. Are you prepared for God's presence in the ways we've discussed? And then by using God's instructions and what he's given us and the skills. And also, and most especially in the atonement and accepting Jesus' sacrifice for your sins. I think these are really important questions for us all to think about today. So I'm going to leave it there. Let's pray. Lord, it's amazing to ponder the construction of the tabernacle, the instructions you gave for it, the resources you provided for it, and the incredible worship that the Israelites had there. But we also want to apply this in our own lives, Lord. Help us to eagerly desire your presence among us in the power of your Holy Spirit, Lord. We want to feel your presence individually, and we want your presence to be expressed in our community as well, Lord. Lord, let us make that decision. Let us act on it, and Lord, challenge us, and Lord, let us respond. And I just really pray for everyone listening here today and online, that we will draw near to you, and you will draw near to us, Lord. Um, it's all you. It's all your power and your provision, as we've discussed today. And we thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen.